Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Breaking Muscle podcast. Today I'm joined by Mike Tromello, who is a decorated athlete himself, but now a great coach. Specifically what we're going to talk about today is building the CrossFit physique. Mike's got a world of experience coaching people to the elite level in CrossFit, and we're going to dive deep on that. He's going to geek out. I'm going to sit back, try not to talk too much and just listen. So let's kick things off. I know what I picture when I think of like the CrossFit physique, but maybe if you outline what you think it is and maybe the difference perhaps between what it takes to be a good physique, to be successful at CrossFit now compared to maybe what the guys are thinking, I want to look like that. And if there is a difference.
That's a great question. I think that in order to answer that question, we have to distinguish between the difference of sport of CrossFit and fitness of CrossFit, because those are two very different things. CrossFit is a buzzword that we like to throw around in the fitness world, right? Because like it was patented and it was given a name by Greg Glassman a long time ago, right? But it's circuit training. Mm-hmm. Right, and then you throw in Tabatas, and you throw in various interval training and various on the minute stuff, and you have what we call CrossFit. Well, really, it's just a strength and conditioning coach putting things together to get their people as fit as possible. So this isn't old. Mm-hmm. So when someone tells me what's fit, what looks fit for someone who's just doing CrossFit to look good naked, my response is what you feel comfortable looking like. Mm-hmm. I think that you can't just look on TV and say, I want to look like that, and a lot of people bring up, the CrossFit Games athletes on ESPN, or if you're going way back, they bring up the athletes in 300, because they did CrossFit to look a certain way. But you're talking about the top 1%. Mm-hmm. And that's not fair to put yourself in that category. So for fitness, it should be, I want to look good, healthy, flat stomach, my physique based on what your body type is, right? I look good, and also more than anything, self-confidence. Person with high self-confidence looks good. Doesn't matter if they have a 6-pack, 8-pack, 2-pack, a keg. they're confident, and that is, I think, is the most important thing. Is self-confidence that CrossFit gives you to look a certain way or feel a certain way.
Yes.
Okay? Going to CrossFit the sport now, well, that's a very different animal. So what I'm looking for with my athletes that have gone to the games and to that level is, I personally, and I think that's why I've had such success in the sport, is I want a very, very strong thoracic and very strong posterior chain. So I want a ripped back. Mm-hmm. The amount of gymnastics required and the weightlifting requires you have very strong backside. So I want to see a ripped back more than ripped abs. The ripped abs are going to come just because they're developed and the back's so developed. So the abs are going to get it. But if I don't see an 8-pack, but I see an amazing looking back, I'm happy. Okay. And I want to see strong legs. And that's what I'm looking for when I see a CrossFit Games level athlete, or the person in the sport of CrossFit. If you look at my athletes, you can tell I coach them. And people that followed my career a very long time, they know for a fact Mike coached that person because look at their back. That's a Mike Tromello athlete. So it's very specific, but that's what I focus on the most, because it requires the most amount of it takes the most toll on the body. And that's why it's in my opinion, the most important thing.
Okay, that's very interesting. So, obviously, a developed back looks great, but most people are thinking mirror muscles. They're thinking arms, chest, delts, abs. And as you say, if you do the back work, the front will probably take care of itself. So, if we work on the basis, though, we've got a split here. The people that are thinking, okay, I want to look good, but I want to really perform well. And then we've got the divide of, I just want to look great on the beach. Okay. And there might be a slight difference. Let's first address the performance athlete. Developing that back, how are you developing? You've got that signature Mike Tromello back. There's a lot of detail, and it'll be individual, but are there some broad brushstrokes you can give us, the volume, frequency, these kind of things?
I do posterior chain work with my clients, but thoracic, let me break that down. Thoracic and posterior chain work, because in my opinion, they're two different things. A lot of people don't understand that. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of it, but I do that. I do each at least once a week. sometimes 2 to 3, depending what the athlete's needs are. Some are different.
Yes.
If anybody wants to see pretty much a good tutorial of the things I do specifically with my athletes, on Breaking Muscle's website, there is literally a tutorial with video on thoracic development and posterior chain development exercises, which are the exact same exercise I put almost all my athletes through. So that's what I look at for my top level athletes, and then I'll throw in gymnastic elements. Like, a lot of people don't realize spending time in the rings, like, I want to do a muscle up, I want to do a muscle up. That's a key word in CrossFit, especially for the competitors. But they don't realize that most of them, if you make them do a Tabata where they do have to hold 7 ring swings, they can't do it. So most athletes don't have the stability in their upper body or the muscles in their back to just swing on the rings. It's such a simple task. So seeing that and developing that stuff, developing the thoracic so they can do those things is very important. Same with the posterior chain. They want to lift a bunch of weight, but the weight feels like 1,000 pounds off the ground. Why? Use posterior chain. So you have to focus on all that stuff first. Walk before you can run.
Yes. Okay, that makes perfect sense. So you mentioned stability in the upper back, and if we're looking at stability, how are you going about addressing that with people?
So I really like to start with just overhead walks with a barbell. Sounds simple, very hard actually. 50 to 100 feet depending on the athlete, with about 75 to 85% of their 1RM snatch max. So they can clean it up there, get into that snatch grip, or they can do a back rack, jock it up, walk it out and walking. And I've seen people get all over the place with that. They get real unstable in the core. And then people always think, like, I want a six-pack, but weightlifters have beautiful arms, and all they really do is overhead squat. They don't really do specific core work. So you really do develop a lot of abdominal strength as well, stability muscles, when you do that. I also love doing that with dumbbell for lower level athletes, dumbbell work, walking over their head. And then I'm a fan of just handstand holds, holding a handstand. Stuff like that with various planks as well also helps a lot for overhead stability.
Okay, that makes sense. And then, of course, the walking's great because then you also got gait and like a movement, and that relationship between the hip and the shoulder, and developing strength and stability the whole way through. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now I'm just thinking, if you're in a CrossFit box, you can get away with that. Guys in a Globo gym, taking a barbell for a walk, not so easy. So how about like kettlebell, each hand, that does the job?
100%. I'll make people in a global gym, because I'll program people all over the place. Dumbbells, kettlebell, just jack it up there, hold it. I usually do a 20 to 30 second hold depending on the athlete. Static hold. Static holds are amazing. You can static hold from a pull-up bar as well. L-sit static holds, or if they can kick up in a global gym, into a handstand. Hold the static hold handstand. So that all works really well to develop overhead stability.
Yes, and also quite humbling if it's not something you've done.
Oh, it's humbling. It's really humbling. It is a lot harder than people think. That's why I go right to it. Just having people walk with a dumbbell, single arm dumbbell, 50 feet down, and the other hand 50 feet back. It's shocking to see how one arm cannot hold the dumbbell up. One great dominant side, the other dominant side, they fail. Their elbows bend, they can't lock it out.
Yeah, actually, thinking of that, perhaps doing that kettlebell or dumbbell version might be a nice assessment for people. Which one's giving up first?
It's a great assessment. I use it all the time, actually. Just overhead walk, dumbbell, or depending on who they are when they come in. I have split program of precision, where it's performance-based programming and fit-based programming in the same class. And I'll have my performance athletes holding a handstand hold, the better athletes doing freestanding handstand hold, while I'll have my fit athletes just holding 2 dumbbells above their head for 30 seconds. In class, in a platform, especially in the COVID era where we're not really walking anywhere, we're staying in one place. So I do that stuff all the time.
So just thinking about this, for someone maybe who's got a desk job, they lack thoracic extension, getting into that overhead position may be problematic for them. Okay, so if we took that as our case study, what may be some steps working for them to build up to getting the range, and then they can develop stability in that range?
You bring a very loaded question, because not everybody has the overhead. Overhead stability, or overhead mobility, I should say, is kind of what you're bringing up, is actually a couple things. One, I've seen more athletes with poor ankle mobility, which are causing poor hip mobility, which is actually leading to bad overhead stability because they're so forward with anything overhead. Their hips shift forward, and it's actually stemming from the ankles. So I actually focus first on the bottom up. I'm a bottom up coach, so same with weightlifting. I'm bottom up. So I will focus on ankle mobility first, then move on to the mobility of everywhere else because a lot of coaches, they go, oh, you have no overhead stability, so they focus right on the overhead. That might not be the problem. Now, don't get me wrong, it exists. We've seen it. We all know that guy that can't get that bar past their ears or towards their ears at all. So if that's the case, then I'll start focusing on their overhead mobility with things. I won't necessarily have them doing overhead holds just yet because I don't think they have the shoulder strength, but I'll have them do planks, push-up planks, holds, box planks, where their butt's up on a box and they're incline, various things like that to get their overhead stability. But first, I start ankles.
Interesting. Okay, so maybe we'll talk about that in a second, but quickly taking on that, you're a bottom-up coach. Does that apply the Olympic lifts? Because I know some people are top-down, and you're a bottom-up.
Bottom up.
Okay.
Oh yeah, there's exactly. A lot of coaches are top down or from the hang. They'll teach the hang approach and then they'll go down. My approach is they have to be able to pick the bar off the ground properly first before they can ever get into a proper hang position. So no, don't get me wrong. I don't want to put myself in that's how I coach, but I will change how I coach depending on the athlete.
It's too late. We've pigeonholed you now. You can never be anything but that. Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. I think that's interesting. So can you expand a little bit on maybe the relationship for those that are struggling to visualize that, how that ankle can affect their shoulder?
So have you ever seen somebody, I was actually just doing this the other day last week with somebody. I have an athlete in the gym who was snatching and he's like, I can't get the bar in the right spot. And I go, put the bar over your head. PVC pipe. Now do an overhead squat. The PVC pipe is literally behind his head, right? So he has shoulder mobility, but he says he doesn't. But then he goes down, he goes to squat, and what happens? His knees track over his toes, and you can see his ankle lift up slightly off. So he's literally tracking forward the whole way down and going back up. And I'm like, you have bad ankle mobility. So I have this, it's all on breaking muscle as well, another ankle mobility segment, but I like to use a kettlebell and we mash out the ankles with a small kettlebell, or you can also use PVC pipe to go around the bottom of the ankle bones and mash it all out. And then I like to work the Achilles to the junction point where the calf meets the Achilles and work that out really good. And if you do that regularly, you'll see them, their heels will sit. Once their heels sit, they're able to track their butt back. And now that overhead stability is in a better position. So a lot of times what's happening is people are tracking forward because they have bad ankle mobility, which is pushing everything forward, hips as well, and then the shoulders are going forward as well. Okay, so after you go through the ankle mobility, guys, and you mash it out, from there, what I do is after I see that, I'll have them overhead squat again, or after multiple times. This could be more than a few sessions. You'll see their heel lock into the ground, and then from there, they tend to track back as they go to squat. Whereas if they don't do that and their ankles stay tight, they're always going to track forward, and that's going to push the weight overhead forward as well, because it's going to track to the hips, which is going to track up to the shoulders. So I find that at the ankle, I've really found with ankle mobility, I've been able to get people to overhead squat and snatch really well because we mash out those ankles a lot.
Yes, okay, interesting. And I like the fact that you know, for people listening, if they're not sure about the ankle and if it's the shoulder, you simply assessed, and he had the shoulder range. It's just that because of when in the overhead squat, the position shift of the ankle caused that had a knock-on effect. So for people to take away is actually assess the joints and see, like some people might find they just can't get into that position. Well, the ankle's not necessarily a limiting factor.
You have to assess one thing at a time. And if you really pay attention, I mean, don't get me wrong, I have people that have both. They have bad ankle and bad shoulder mobility. Most of the time, I'll be honest with you guys, if people have bad overhead stability and bad shoulder mobility, they probably have bad everything else. So you got to address everything.
Yes. Actually, talking shoulder mobility, how much of that is driven by the thoracic, do you think?
I think that okay, in our day and age, people just sit in front of computers all day, right? We were talking, you already mentioned it, sitting in an office. We spend how much time bench slunched over with our shoulders in front of us, holding our cell phone, playing video games. I mean, we are in this age, and so if you look at everyone's back, it is so underdeveloped. I walk around the streets regularly, and I don't know why. I'm looking at a girl's butt. I'm looking at their back, and I can just and I can see the underdevelopment of so many athletes. My own daughter, my little girl, we found out she had small case of scoliosis. And I looked at her back, and I realized that one scap was underdeveloped compared to the other. So this was, she was younger, so I put her in our CrossFit, our Team Precision Kids program, CrossFit type program out of my gym. And now I look at her back now, and she's looking so much better. It's much better. Now she's gonna have one side more developed than the other, no matter what, because that's just how her birth defect that she has. But she's strong. I can see she can do all kinds of cool things. She can do pull-ups, just because we're developing the back. And I make my coaches focus a ton on backside development. And I actually wrote a book on adolescent development. And in my book, I do talk about developing the thoracic and the posterior chain of kids, because especially in this day and age, because it's not like when we were growing up, Tom, we ran outside and played. That's not a thing anymore. They have house parties on their iPads now.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've got smartphones. They grow up with them. Those I was like, how old was I? I don't know. I was like maybe 30 before they even invented. So
I was my smartphone crap. I think I was out of college when I got my first smartphone that actually could do stuff.
Exactly. So it's a very different existence now. So they got a whole lot more. I mean, there's the worries of social media and the pressure that brings, but from a physical standpoint, also just the posture they're in.
The posture they're in is insane. You tell a kid to stand up straight these days, and they're straining to stand up. And it's not because they can't do it, it's because they just don't do it ever.
So I think an interesting point, also, she talked about your daughter example. You couldn't tell about the scoliosis from looking at her, just eyeballing things, right? Because it's stuff on the inside. So there's certain things that unless we get x-rays or scans, we're just never going to know. But by having some good programming, good exercise protocols, things kind of corrected themselves. So like what we know is that if we're sensible with our programming, our exercise selection, all these things, we can affect stuff that you might otherwise be thinking, there's nothing I can do here.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's so much about just paying attention to your body. Now, I get it. You're an average person. You're not out there. You don't know what the heck. You just know you can't do this. That's why it's really important to go seek out a coach that knows. And when I was competing in CrossFit, I had a coach. So people need to understand this. Coaches need coaches.
Yes.
Trainers need trainers. We can't do it ourselves. We don't listen to our own advice anyway. We need someone else to tell us. That's just how it is. So even to this day, we have a GM in the gym. He's fantastic, Jose Cobian, and he gives me advice all the time. He sees, hey Mike, you're off on your pull. I need that. You should be okay with that. So what I tell people out there that just want to be fit, find a coach that knows what they're doing. Whether it's in the CrossFit world or whether it's my best friend, he was 60 pounds overweight. He's an airline pilot. He's like, I need to lose weight. I'm like, he joined a Orange Theory Fitness out here. It's CrossFit with heart rate. It's all slow glycotic oxidative work. But he lost 60 pounds. He lost it all. And now he's starting to lift and do more of the CrossFit stuff because he wants to get into that. But he started somewhere. So I tell everybody, start somewhere. Doesn't matter if it's CrossFit. Doesn't matter if it's Orange Theory. Doesn't matter if it's yoga. Start somewhere. And as long as that coach knows what they're doing, you'll get better. You'll get fitter. And that's all that matters.
Well, yesterday I interviewed Dan John, and I'm fairly certain this is his quote. But anyway, if not, it's something along the lines of, if you're a coach and you coach yourself, you have an idiot for a client. So I think, it's so true that you need that objective input as well, because the other thing is training your body. It's such an emotional thing that we get attached on that, and we can't separate it and make sensible decisions. The decisions we'd make for our athletes, we just lose the plot, and we don't make those.
Yeah, and we've also done it our whole lives. We are always fit, regardless of what happens in our life. We know how to work out. We know what we need to do, and if we know we just need to move. But if we want to take it another step up, we're not going to listen to ourselves. We just know we know what the minimum is that we need to do to look a certain way. But there's so much more to it if you listen to somebody else.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we've got some really vital points and takeaways for anyone listening here so far, but I just want to change tack a little bit. So now if we've got someone who's like, I want to look like a CrossFit athlete, but do I need to do the Olympic lifts? Do I need to do gymnastics? Or can I incorporate some of the energy system work and train, like pepper in some bodybuilding style stuff? Can I get that physique without going fully into committing to learning the Olympic lifts and the skill work of the gymnastics?
Yeah, 100%. You don't need to do Olympic lifts or do gymnastics, high-level CrossFit gymnastics to look like a CrossFitter, right? You just need to train the energy systems, that's for one. And a lot of people don't understand that, right? They don't even know what that means. And what I noticed, a lot of people I brought up Orange Theory earlier, so I'll bring them up again. Fantastic training system, but trains two systems only: slow glycolytic, oxidative. Well, that's awesome. And that's going to last you for 6 months, 6 to 9 months. You're going to get results, but then you're going to plateau because you're not working phosphagen and fast glycolytic, right? So you're not taking out those high intensities. So it's what we always said back in the day, like you're going to plateau eventually because you do this. The body's an amazing thing, and it can always adapt. So the idea back in the day, we think P90X, we'll go back to muscle confusion, right? They used to say muscle confusion was what they called it. And essentially it was them working the systems and then trying to confuse the body, right? It's not a bad terminology. It's just funny to us as training coaches. But it's the same concept, right? So you're going to plateau unless you start to do the other systems. So if you're doing CrossFit and you're going to a place that understands programming, which I'm not gonna lie, it's few and far between these days. There's not a lot of them, and I love CrossFit. And will tell you Breaking Muscle that I am like the true guy towards it, but I also know it's false. You got to find the right place. But if they're doing all four systems. Listen, if I wanted you to do cleans, I could make you sit and do a weighted wall sit with dumbbells for 30 seconds. And then immediately after those wall sits are done, make you do 6 broad jumps as far as you can. What did I get? I got load from the clean, and I got extensions. I got hip and ankle extension from the jump. I just did cleans. I didn't need to do a clean. Right? Yes. But I got the concept from it. So if you're doing that stuff, you can still get people to do that. Make them jump on a box, triple extension. Yes. That's Olympic lifts, right? They should still be squatting and deadlifting depending on who they are. I will say this, I've done a lot of research lately, and I actually put myself through this. I've never put my athletes through something I haven't done myself. And I actually found with older athletes with back injuries, which I've had one for my whole life from playing football, is I decided during quarantine to just deadlift and not squat. Because squatting for some reason shifts my hips out. And when you shift your hips out, your back goes out of place a lot of the time. And so I only deadlifted. And when I was done with this deadlift cycle, which I was always afraid to do because of my back, right? Yeah. My deadlift went up, PR'd my deadlift, hit a lifetime PR. And my back squat, I managed to hit a back squat. I hadn't squatted in like 3 months. I managed to hit a back squat I hadn't hit since college.
Wow.
So there's something to be said of going back about a strong posterior chain, which is what the deadlifts do. So what I think is what people need to understand is you can just do power lifts, you can just press, you can do bodybuilding, right? Tricep extensions, lat pull downs, all those things that we see in the gym, the global gym, and still have that CrossFit physique 100%.
Yes, I think which is great for people to hear, because one of the mistakes people think is, or I think they're making is, the CrossFit guys look amazing. I want to look like that guys. I saw them doing muscle ups, handstand walks, Olympic lifts. I need to do that to look like that. But actually, that's not the whole picture.
No, you don't need to do that at all. You just need a circuit train.
Yeah.
You just mentioned, as you were saying, muscle ups, handstand walk, and Olympic lifts, I was thinking, well, why can't they just do broad jumps, tricep extensions, and overhead walks with a barbell? I was like, sounds like a good workout.
Yeah.
Same thing.
One of the things that springs to mind with me is those ones that I listed off. They're really high skill. So you can't have output with those, and if you haven't got the skill. Lower skill things you can push.
100%. And that's what's going to make you fit.
Exactly.
Right? We're talking about fitness and looking good naked. We're not talking about that's performance. I'll tell you honestly, if you make me do a muscle up workout right now, I'll feel it. You make me do a handstand walk workout right now, I'm not going to feel anything. I'm just going to be frustrated because I can't walk with my hands right now. Like you're not going to get the same output. But if I make me go to overhead walk, I will.
Yes, exactly. So if you want a muscle to be developed, it needs to be the limiting factor in that exercise kind of thing. And if you're failing on handstand walking just because you haven't got the skill, the muscles involved, they're never being challenged. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's an important thing for people to understand.
Definitely, 100%.
Okay, cool. So while we were talking earlier on, I had a few other thoughts ping into my mind. So you talk about, you program for people in like your gym, your Globo gym.
Garages now, you'd be shocked.
Right. Of course.
Outside, I've had to tailor stuff into things I never thought possible. Things I'm using, I've never thought I'd ever use in programming.
Can you give us a bit of insight into your sort of philosophy, even, if I could say it'd be helpful, but like a 1,000-mile view, because you've got different tools, but you've got certain energy systems that you're trying to tax. So how are you, like, if we zoom out, is there some principles that people could take from that to put into their own work based on what they have available?
Yes. I mean, what people don't understand is that it's one thing. I think we should talk about the energy systems to answer this question.
Sure.
Because, like, what are they talking about?
Okay, fair point.
So phosphagen, guys, is a lift. Anything that lasts a couple seconds, 30 seconds, under a minute, think. Let's just make it simple, right? Fast life, there's the glycotic system, but I break it up into 2 parts. Fast glycotic is high intensity. It takes blood when you're done. Everyone knows that. It crushed me, right? So in CrossFit world, that'd be Fran. Well, Fran's high skill. It's got pull-ups. Who says you can do 45 pull-ups? So I put my gym through this workout the other day. It was a 250-meter row, and then they had to do 6 burpees, and then the number went up by 2 until they failed. They only had 2 minutes to do this activity. Okay. So it was very simple, right? It was rowing and burpees. Anyone could row and burpees. If I don't have a rower, I can do 100-meter sprints and burpees. It doesn't matter. I can do that in my house, right? So that's fast glycotic. Slow glycotic is sports. It is your favorite CrossFit workout, your favorite workout in general. It's stop, go, you get comfortable, right? That's slow. Every sport is in slow glycotic. Oxidative, endurance, right? What springs to mind for most of us is a 5K run. Some of us, that is slow glycotic because they can sprint it. But for most of the population, 5K run, 10K run, 5K row, aerobic activity, right? Anything over 20 to 25 minutes. Okay, so that's really clear. So now that you know the systems, all you got to do now is how do I put those systems into place in my garage, in a global gym, in a CrossFit gym. And if you just work those systems, you will be fitter. You will be overall fitter. It does not matter. Now you have to break it down to strength, right? Well, what do I do to be strong? Well, if I'm in a global gym, I can squat, I can deadlift, I can press, right? Most likely. Well, a lot of them have Olympic lifts now, but I wouldn't do Olympic lifts unless I know an Olympic lift. So let's just keep the things you can do. Squat, press, deadlift. Then go on a strength cycle and until you build up. Now, gymnastics. Well, if I can't do gymnastics, right, I want to do gymnastics physique, well, I can do accessory work. I call it successory work
I like that.
in my gym. But name it, guys. Overhead press, tricep extensions, lat pull down. It's all things we've heard our entire lives. Any great burn workout you like to do, that works, right? Bodybuilding physique stuff, abdominal physique stuff, weighted sit-ups, planks, all that stuff throws in there. So what's a good day, right? A skill or accessory, a lift, and then a energy system based workout, circuit training workout. And you can do that anywhere. So you can think outside the box, you can do that anywhere you're at.
Yes. Okay, cool. I think that's great. And I think actually another thing that sprang to mind as you were saying that is for people that I just want to be fit for life and to deal with whatever crap's going on, it ticks all those boxes, right?
Yes, 100%. I mean, that you hope so.
Well, if you're doing it right, yeah.
We're all fit for life. I don't know if I hit those boxes all the time. I take my own classes at my gym to hit the boxes now.
So actually, talking about ticking the boxes of all those elements, you had that within one workout. You can tick off a lot of things. In terms of organising your training, maybe with athletes, but if we're looking for general pop, do you have a bias? So at certain points we emphasize certain things and we back the other things off, and that's a cyclical fashion. How are you organizing that?
Honestly, you can't listen. The reason why I don't do my own programming is because of bias. Okay, I don't care how much you try and say you're not biased. You're biased. Mm-hmm. You don't want to do that. The reason why you don't want to do it is because it sucks.
Yes.
Okay, so you're like, I don't want to do that. That's not fun. So if you're doing your own programming, you're going to be biased. Mm-hmm. Or you're going to do the other point where all you do is work on weaknesses and you're never happy. Okay, so there has to be a thin line there where you're happy, but you also work on weaknesses, right? Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people out there that can do their own programming, in my opinion, and be successful at it. Okay, so I highly recommend people hire a coach or follow programming online, or go get a source where they are impartial. Mm-hmm. Okay, and if they are impartial, they'll do great. But if they're not going to be as successful. In my opinion, they won't be as successful as they could be. But will they be fit? Yes.
Yes.
Fit, you're just not going to work on some of the things you need to work on.
Yeah, I think that's a key point. You can get results, you just can't get optimal results, and you might create blind spots because you ignore them.
Mm. Blind spots are huge. Good buzzword. But Are they fit? Are they happy? I mean, what are we really going for? If we're going to look good naked and be mentally healthy, then they can do their own programming. Because who cares if they have a blind spot? They're not going to compete in CrossFit, right? They're not going to the games. They just want to be healthy. Then they win. Mm-hmm.
Which is, I think, is another key point, is assessing what you want and what you're prepared to give to get that. Yeah. And if your goal is to compete at the CrossFit Games, then you need to approach things from a different standpoint, to be like, I want to look pretty jacked, but I want to enjoy myself.
You know, if you want to compete in the CrossFit Games, and you approach me about your appearance, we're not going to be friends. You know, I don't care about what you look like. You're going to look fine, believe me. But if you're thinking aesthetics and you're thinking that's material, in my opinion, that's a materialistic way to think. That's not performance. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so my job is to make you perform. It's not to make you look good. Yes. Right? And that's a huge thing people need to understand when they're trying to go to that level. It's performance, not how you look. You're gonna look great. Have you seen a CrossFit Games out there that looks bad? Come on.
Exactly. Yeah.
They don't exist.
That's very true. So a couple of points that came up earlier that I wanted to refer back to. You talked about how you could do like the wall sit into the broad jumps, and you can get a similar adaptations, but you've just had to think a little bit outside the box to achieve that. And an example that sprang to mind with a friend of mine who's a rugby strength and conditioning coach, and he's like got some guys and they've got a good background in Olympic lifting. When he's looking for their power development, rate of force development, they might be doing hang snatch, but other guys, he's doing a standing jump, like vertical jump or whatever, and he's like, I'm training the same thing, I'm just using a different tool. And I think that's, again, just key for people to realize that.
That is he's a strength coach, and I'm a strength coach. I've been for years. I was a high school and college strength coach for a long time, and the football team would do hang cleans, basketball team would do max effort height box jump. You know, some coaches also, like, you work with some coaches baseball team didn't want their baseball players doing cleans because they were afraid their wrists would get injured. And in baseball, it's a wrist sport with how they catch, how they throw, how they hit. It's a wrist. So they were like, no. But I was able to convince them to let me do clean pulls. Okay. You know, or the box jumps, or the weighted wall sits, and all that. Like, every sport is different. They don't need to do that stuff. Sometimes coaches don't want it, but it's really imperative that you understand the movement, can break down the movement, and say this will work too. And that's going back. A properly knowledgeable strength conditioning coach working with you that knows what they're talking about.
Yes,
so
okay.
Once again, go to the right place.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a great tip for anyone, is like seek out some expertise. It applies in all other fields of life. It's the same with your body, and you only get one of those, so you want to make care of it. Another point you mentioned was how credible the body was at adapting. And so I talk to a lot of my clients about adaptive resistance, and that's why we need to change things. Because if you do the same thing over and over, you get less of a return. And eventually the body has no reason to adapt, and the body doesn't want to have to adapt because it's costly to make these adaptations. So, it wants to just find that homeostasis again and be able to do this. So we're having to work on ways to manipulate the training to keep providing a novel stimulus without it being just randomization. Now, if you're training all the energy systems within a workout, how are you going about getting adaptation or avoiding that decay and adaptive resistance?
Training all the energy systems in a workout. You're picking the day that you're doing the energy system training.
Yes.
So I don't consider accessory work to be energy system training. I consider it to be accessory work, right? Or gymnastic work. Same with lifting. Lifting is phosphagen, right? So every lift is phosphagen. That's fine if you're building that. And then your workout, your interval-based workout, your CrossFit-based workout, that's going to be energy system specific. All right, so then you should rotate through those slow glycotic. I like to do a really good, template would be 1 oxidative a week, 1 fast glycotic a week, and then 2 to 3 slows. And if you're doing that, it's a great template to follow. You can always switch 1 slow for a fast or 1 slow for an oxidative on certain weeks. But it's a training calendar.
Yes,
but you have to make your own training calendar.
Yeah, I'm glad you mapped that out, because I was concerned that otherwise people would be like, okay, so I'm going to go and train power, then I'm going to do some strength work, bodybuilding, and then I'm going to do all different energy system work, 1 workout every session.
Well, really, they're going to burn out. So it's about, what I tell everybody, and I do this for my gym, I do this for my clients, is I actually do a 52-week calendar year, and that's an actual picture, and I actually put it all in, the systems, what they'll work and where they're going to work them in every single week. And you should be deloading yourself every 3 to 4 weeks, which means low volume, low intensity, or nothing at all. Just let your body recuperate and then go back to the system.
Yeah, okay, good point. So let's talk deloads, because first of all, people hate them. So you talked about a deload. Do you have a preference for, it's a deload in volume predominantly, and or is it a deload in intensity and volume, or is it a deload in intensity?
It depends. Depends on where we are in the strength cycle. Let's just talk. If I'm talking general pop, it should be I think the most important thing would be deloading the skeletal system. So I don't want to load the skeletal system. So I would be no lifting for a week, right? I can still do, and then I recommend no lifting for a week, and then oxidative work, mostly oxidative work, slow glycotic. Comfortable, right? You don't need to go high intensity. You don't need to go over the top with volume, right? Keep it low. However, if we're talking about some athletes, they might need more than that. Some athletes, some of the games athletes I've had to shut them down. You're off. No, you're done. Nothing this week. Throw a foam roller at them if they get on an assault bike or something. No, get off that assault bike. Nothing. You need to recover. It really depends case by case. But for most of the population, lower the intensity, load off the skeletal system.
Okay, some great guidelines for everyone, but I think again it feeds back to that point of get someone who knows what they're doing to help you with your programming.
Get somebody who knows what they're doing. And anyone who's watching this is saying, I'm going to take what he said and do it myself. Guys, I've been doing this for 20-something years. I've done some really high level strength and conditioning. I'm not some average Joe. I do feel like this is one of the things I know best is programming. Get somebody that knows what they're doing. Seek somebody out. Don't try and do it yourself unless you really know what you're talking about.
Yes, and I think the other thing is we're just scratching the surface here. We're giving people a little insight, but it would be impossible for us to cover everything. It's it's months and months of seminars you'd have to give to sort of download that information to them, download your brain almost.
I've given several seminars overseas, and I've had 2-day seminars, 3-day seminars, and I will talk programming for an entire day, and I still have them. Great coaches will message me regularly with questions about this and that, still trying to understand it. I feel like you and I are making this very simple we're talking very simplistic right now, but we both know what we're talking about. This is not simple. It's simple to us.
Yes, that's true.
It's not simple to who's listening to us, most likely.
Yeah, of course. That's a very good point. It's like you don't know what you don't know, or and then you often forget your level of knowledge and then passing that on to someone else, trying to meet them where they are.
And Tom, you're very humble. We all know what you bring to the table. You're very well known in this industry as well. You know what you're talking about. Okay.
I managed to convince people of that. Yeah.
You managed to convince people of that, but you are a very good coach in your own right. So that's what people need to understand. This is not simple. It's simple.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. That's very true. I mean, like you say, you've been 20 years. This is my 16th year coaching people. I've done some really stupid stuff, made a lot of mistakes, and it's just a case of getting slightly better. And like you said, with you get some great coaches contact you. The point is that they recognise it's not the finished article. I can always get better, and I'm trying to find ways.
Yes, 100%. I mean, I always said in my career, I started when I was 17 years old doing personal training at some of my mom's patients in their houses. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I had no idea. I don't know what I did. I don't know how I got through that. And even as a personal trainer at a global gym when I was getting my certifications together, I still didn't know what I was doing, and I still to this day am constantly trying to learn new things all the time that I can implement. But I will say, I always said I wanted to be the coach of coaches. That was my goal, and I definitely hit that goal. But it doesn't mean I know everything.
Yes.
So
you're still learning, yeah.
Always. And if you think you know everything, then you know nothing at all. And I've always said that.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a great takeaway for everything, and you can apply that to all walks of life and or whatever your business or career is in. Yeah, crucial. So with that coach of coaches, I wonder, this is something I talked about Andrew Coates about on his episode. Have you ever had or suffered with imposter syndrome? Because I know some people, they have a lot of knowledge, but then they're I don't want to put it out there. I'm not sure if people will judge me. Is it right? Am I going to get criticized? Was that ever anything you worried about?
I think you've listened to me talk. Do I sound like I don't have confidence?
Well, no. I wondered if that was something that had been cultivated, or you've just always felt.
No, I've always been told since I was in high school I was a confident individual. I've always had a very big mouth. I've never been afraid to speak or put my mind out there. And I'll be honest with you, I think so much of this industry is self-confidence and being able to not being afraid to talk. If you're wrong, then but you're not afraid to put it out there, that goes a long way, because the only way you're going to be told if you're correct is if someone corrects you. And I've been corrected multiple times, by people and I'm better. I'm a better coach.
Yes.
So I have no problems with putting it out there. I'll be honest, I see a lot of trainers out there that I follow that I really don't think too highly of them, knowing what they're doing, but they put it out there, and it's who would follow this guy? But he puts it out there. He's not afraid. And then I know trainers out there that are a wealth of knowledge, and they put nothing out there. And it's you are so much better than this person, but you're afraid to put it out there. Impostor syndrome, what you mentioned. So I think I've never had that issue. I think that you should not be afraid to put yourself out there, because that's life. And right now, the way things are going, you better. There's the old saying, dog eat dog. You better be a dog. You better get after it, because only so many opportunities.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a great point. And actually, it comes to mind with me, my confidence, how it's increased through my career. And so at first, I'd have been very quiet, and I would consider myself knowledgeable, but I wouldn't want to put that out there. And then certainly, if questions from clients, I'd be wanting to have the answer to everything, right? And the idea of I don't know would have been horrified me. But the better you get, the more confident you are saying, you know what, I don't know. I'll find out.
The best response is, you know what, I'm not sure. Let me look into that and get back to you. I use it all the time. And I will look it up, and I will get back to them.
That's exactly it.
I will find a way. Or if I don't know the answer, I will put them in contact with somebody that does. That's
100%.
also very important.
Yeah. I think it gets buy-in from then as well, because they, number one, realise you're honest and you're transparent with them, but also you follow up by delivering on, I look into it, here's what I found out, this is the answer.
Yeah, not afraid. And I think you bring up a great point. So many coaches are afraid, their ego gets in the way of that. Oh, I should know. Well, they think that their client's not going to look at them as with as much respect, they don't know the answer. And it's the complete opposite of that. If you take the approach that we're talking about, where you say, I don't know, and you point them in the right direction, even if somebody else is giving them the knowledge, they're going to respect you so much more for taking that approach. So
absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a key point, and I think we've had a great chat, Mike. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
No, okay.
So he's got all a bit dangerous, then you'll end up with more questions from me.
Yeah, it's all good. It's been fun.
What I got up next is actually a bit of a change of tack, but a quick fire, either or questions. So you can tell us which one, either or. So kick it off with, is it pizza or burger?
Oh man, I love them both so much.
Yeah.
But if I had to choose, I would definitely go with a burger.
Yep, I'm with you there. Okay, chocolate or peanut butter?
Oh, really? Why are you going with my two favorite things in the world? Together, they're amazing.
Well, exactly, yes.
I need them
That's
combined.
why it's tricky.
I need them combined, but dark chocolate.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Beach holiday or a city break?
A sissy break?
City.
City break.
A sissy break. No, that's even better. Let's do that.
Beach holiday. Beach holiday. I'm not really a fan of the city.
Yeah. It's a funny one. When I ask people in the States about chocolate and peanut butter, everyone's like, you idiot, how could they not be just together? And when beach holiday or city break, they're like, what the hell's a city break?
I know exactly what a city break is. I mean, I lived in Europe for a long time. I played football out there, so I get the city break. But I'm not a city guy. I'm not really a beach guy. But if you tell me like tropical beach with like hammocks, I'm on.
All about that. Yeah. Because you were based in Sweden, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Where was that? Stockholm or?
I was 2 hours outside of Stockholm in a small town called Gävle.
And how was that? I bet that was different.
It was different, but it was awesome. It was one of the most best experiences of my life. I miss those guys. It's been 15 years since I've been back there, and every time I go to Germany for a seminar, I'm like, I'm gonna go to Sweden. I'm gonna head up to see my guys in Gävle, but it always happens to be winter, and you don't want to go to Sweden in the winter.
I've only ever been in the summer.
Yeah, it's the best time. And summer's beautiful. Winter's the complete opposite. It's not. I tell them, like, no. Don't come.
23 hours of sunshine in the summer. It's amazing. Like it's just like feels like the whole day is sunny.
And it's like 23 hours of darkness in the winter.
Yeah.
It's not good.
No interest. Living in London, we get plenty of darkness, but not quite that much.
Not quite that much.
Okay, so steak, rare or well done?
Rare. That's easy.
Easy. Eggs, scrambled or poached?
Scrambled.
Okay. Now, not last question, penultimate question, but tell me something about yourself that people probably don't already know. This is the one that gets people thinking.
I think people only know what they see on social media. So here's what I tell people about my life on social media. I am a smoke and mirrors guy. Okay, so and I understand that that's how most people put their lives on social media, and let me tell you something about them. They are smoke and mirrors as well.
Yes.
I don't post a lot about my family. I do a little bit. I don't post much about my wife. But one thing I'll say is I've been with my wife since my wife and I are high school sweethearts. So since we were 15 years old, we've been together. So I don't post about her at all. That doesn't mean I don't love her. That means that our life is private. And we like to keep it that way. Oh man,
you're talking my language.
Yeah, so smoke and mirrors. What you see on social media is my exploits. I want you to see it. It is my athletes doing well. It's not my life. Okay, my life is private. I really enjoy my family and my children. I love hanging out with my wife. Being quarantined for a year has been awesome. Because a lot of things have gone wrong, but if I look at it, I've spent more time with my family and more time with my wife than ever, and I'm not getting divorced. I actually enjoy spending time. So I think that's one thing. I think that's something I could tell people.
Yeah, definitely. I think social media is a highlight reel, and some people are more open about their private life, but personally for me, there's very little. Most people are surprised that they find out I'm married with 2 kids. That if I make reference to that,
they're like, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And then I think a good point you made about spending time with the family. I don't know how long you've been sort of stuck at home, but we had 4 months, so we were doing homeschooling.
Yeah, I'm still doing homeschooling, my friends.
No, man, it's a rough gig.
Yeah, we are. I mean, they're going to school 2.5 hours a day, and then the rest is at home.
Okay.
But I'm a credentialed teacher, so I stopped teaching about 5 years ago, just to focus on my gym, and I didn't think I'd be teaching again. And I'm not only am I teaching again, I'm teaching my children, which is a whole nother experience.
Yes. Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I don't think my kids respected me in any way. They respect their teachers.
Oh yeah. My kids are actually they do quite well with it, actually. My daughter can be tough. She's me. She's the same personality I have, so it's like it's not a good combo, but we get through it together. We find ways. I have to motivate them very differently. My son he's a sweetheart. He listens for the most part.
Yes, it's a very similar setup here.
Yeah, he's a lot easier to convince than my daughter.
Yeah, which one's the older of the two?
My son. They're 14 months apart.
Okay.
So
same for us. It's 22 months, but certainly easier to teach my son.
Yeah.
So
daughters are hard.
Yeah, I'd always do his teaching, and I just let my wife deal with our daughter.
My wife helps me with both of them. She's amazing with them. She definitely clashes with them a little more. My daughter, my wife's the sweetest. I never saw my wife. I can count. My wife and I together for a very long time. I saw her anger 2 times our entire lives until we had a daughter.
Yeah, well, this is all very, very familiar. So final question for me is, if I have access to anyone, my address book, anyone's out there, who should I interview next?
Okay, so there's my coach. So I grew up, the way I learned how to lift, I was 15 years old, and one of my friends' dad had a platform, a barbell, and some plates in his garage. Now, this is in the early mid-90s. This is before CrossFit was a thing and Olympic weightlifting was foreign. My football coaches thought I was working with some witch doctor. Okay. Anyway, flash forward years later, Butch is a cameraman in the film industry, but he's also he taught me how to lift. He's the reason why I'm a strength and conditioning coach. He has all the certifications. He's insane. He's a national weightlifting coach. He's in the Martial Arts Hall of Fame. He is a cameraman for the film and movie industry. He builds saddles in his spare time. I mean, like leather work. He is a jack of all trades and master of none. But technically he is a master because he's you hear that saying. He's one of the most interesting human beings you could ever speak to, and he taught me everything I know.
Sounds like an incredible guest.
He's an amazing guest. Right. Yeah, he'd be a great guest.
All right, you'll have to hook us up.
I will totally
give me his email.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, Mike, it's been brilliant chatting to you. Please take a moment now just to let everyone know where they can find out a little bit more about you, how they can get in contact, and maybe how they can work with you.
Yeah. Hey guys, so you can go on my website, which is precisioncrossfit.net. You can also find me on Instagram at Tromello. You can go on Facebook, Michael Tromello, find me there. You can email me at MTROMELLO, so mtromello@gmail.com, or just send me a DM on Facebook or Instagram. That's totally fine. But most of my stuff is on my Precision CrossFit. You can find everything you need to know on Precision CrossFit's website. Call that number or go on that email. That'll also go directly to me. So I tell everybody I'm really easy to get a hold of. You pretty much can get a hold of me any way possible, and I'll find it'll all go to me.
Okay, cool. So that's that central hub, though. So that website, but we'll make sure we have all the show notes. All the links in the show notes.
Awesome. And also you can find me on Breaking Muscle, guys, too. I have a whole.
Of course, yes, some great articles there.
On there. So
anyone who's thinking they need to look at ankle mobility and thoracic,
take a look.
It's there.
It's there.
Awesome. All right, Mike, thank you so much for taking the time to chat today. It was brilliant. Loads of value for the listeners there. Have a great day.
You too. Enjoy.
Thanks, man. That wraps up today's episode. Thank you so much for investing your time with us. We really appreciate it. If you enjoyed what you heard and took value from it, please do me a favour by heading to iTunes right now, subscribing to the show, and leaving a review. Positive reviews, like 5 stars, hint hint, really help the ranking of the show and will help us to spread the word and keep getting top-class guests on. Make sure to follow Breaking Muscle on social media and me at Tom McCormick, that's TOMMACCORMICK on Instagram. Bye for now, and I'm looking forward to catching you on the next episode of the Breaking Muscle podcast.